Before I introduce our esteemed guest, Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, I would like to say a few words about the origins of this evening's lecture, Building Bridges Moving Beyond Denominational Judaism, and how it relates to my late father, Rabbi Chaim-Asa, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. Rabbi Asa helped build the Temple Beth Tikva community for over 30 years. During his tenure, he also made significant contributions to the wider Orange County Jewish community. In addition, he spent his career building bridges between members of the Jewish community, as well as with other people of faith throughout Orange County and beyond. Upon his passing last May, I was inspired to carry on his legacy and continue his life's work by building a new bridge between the Temple Beth Tikva congregation and the Zahavi-Asa congregation that I belong to in Efrat, Israel. I was profoundly touched during my father's final days, his funeral and the Shiva, by the outpouring of love and support from those who had known my father, not only from TBT, but from the wider Jewish and non-Jewish community. With my father's passing, I realized that not only did I want to continue my father's legacy in some way, which in itself is no easy feat, as many of you who knew him know, but I was also inspired to reconnect with the Temple Beth Tikva community that he helped build. Temple Beth Tikva was a major part of my life throughout my childhood and teenage years. I attended religious and Hebrew school at TBT, was bat mitzvahed and confirmed here, held leadership positions in its youth group and the Southern California Reform Youth Movement, and taught Hebrew school here. I stood on this very bima for my bat mitzvah, my confirmation, and last year for my father's eulogies. In many ways, this community served as the launching pad for the Jewish identity and practice that is so much part of our extended Asa family. Our family includes two sisters who belong to modern Orthodox congregations, my youngest sister, Eliana, who lives in Los Angeles, and my own family in Efrat, Israel. Our brother, Ariel, found his place as an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, mohel, and scribe, and lives in Atlanta. And our other sister, Leora, lives in northern Israel in a small community affiliated with the Reform movement. My father and mother, Elaine Asa, served as the definitive role models for respecting diversity while valuing the unity of Am Yisrael. My parents allowed each of their children to define their own Jewish path while simultaneously emphasizing the importance of family life. If my parents were able to make room for all of our differences while simultaneously strengthening the bonds between us, I know that the greater Jewish community can achieve a unity that respects the diversity we see in contemporary Judaism. To continue my father's legacy, the Asa family has committed to building and dedicating a synagogue in Israel for the Zahavi-Asa congregation in Efrat. Given that the synagogue was my father's home away from home, and that a building is named in honor of my parents right here next to TBT, for those of you who want to afterwards can see the building outside, the Asa Center for Lifelong Jewish Learning, we feel that this would further reflect many of the values for which my father stood. These values include the importance of Jewish community, Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, and Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. A building, however, is simply a physical structure and does not fully convey the values that my father lived and breathed every moment of his life. He succeeded in reaching out to Jews and many non-Jews of all backgrounds. He embodied a Judaism that went beyond labels and categories such as Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, Secular, and Religious. My father was responsible for bringing many Jews closer to Judaism. He understood that what unites us as a people is much stronger than what divides us. In his everyday life, his actions reflected the belief that our survival as a people and our God-given mission of tikkun olam, repairing the world, is dependent on reaching out to one another despite our differences. It was because of this dedication to building bridges between all members of the Jewish community that I approached the leadership of Temple Beth Tikva and Zahavi-Asa to begin forging a relationship between this Reform congregation in California and a modern Orthodox congregation in Israel. This endeavor will establish a unique bond between two wonderful Jewish communities that are religiously diverse and located on opposite ends of the globe. When I approached tonight's speaker, Rabbi Riskin, the chief rabbi of Efrat, with this vision, he was wholeheartedly supportive. He shared with me the initiatives he has undertaken to create links between Jews of different backgrounds. He also generously offered to present the first Rabbi Chaim-Asa Memorial Lecture as a way to spearhead the relationship between these two congregations. Following this evening's lecture, a series of adult education classes via online links will take place between Jewish educators from Zahavi-Asa and members of TBT's adult education program. The Zahavi-Asa congregation has already made people-to-people connections with several TBT members by hosting them for Shabbatot and holidays during their trips to Israel. We look forward to welcoming many more visitors from TBT to our vibrant community. You can find more information about Zahavi-Asa, the synagogue building project, and my father's life at the website link that appears on the handout that you received earlier this evening. There should have been things on the seats. May Hashem, the one above, bless this endeavor and allow us to create a new bond between Jews of different backgrounds as a way of promoting achdut, unity, among Am Yisrael. And now I have the honor of introducing tonight's speaker, Rabbi Shlomo Riskin, the Chief Rabbi of Efrat, Israel, and one of the leading voices in the modern Orthodox world. Over the past 5 decades, Rabbi Riskin has made monumental contributions to Israel and world Jewry. He is an internationally renowned educator and speaker who has published 11 books. He also writes a weekly column that appears in the Jerusalem Post and is syndicated in newspapers around the world. Rabbi Riskin attained rabbinical ordination at Yeshiva University from his mentor, the eminent Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, and holds a PhD in Jewish history from New York University. As the founding rabbi of the Lincoln Square Synagogue in Manhattan, he created a focal point for an exciting approach to Orthodoxy, attracting many young intellectuals and professionals. He served as a role model for religious social action through his involvement in civil rights and the plight of Soviet Jewry. He has become a major spokesperson for modern Orthodoxy by pioneering the first women's advanced Talmud study program and the first synagogue service conducted for women by women in the early 1970s. In 1983, Rabbi Riskin made Aliyah and became the founding chief rabbi of Efrat. Today, Efrat has close to 12,000 residents and is considered one of the most vibrant and desirable communities of the greater Jerusalem area. In Israel, Rabbi Riskin also founded a boys' high school in Efrat. This was the first of many initiatives that would eventually become Or Torah Stone, a network of groundbreaking educational institutions, women's empowerment programs, innovative leadership training programs, and outreach initiatives to non-observant Israelis. Or Torah Stone currently reaches 3,000 students from Israel and the diaspora, ranging from elementary schools to postgraduate programs for men and women. Rabbi Riskin is a leading proponent for broadening women's participation, involvement, and leadership within traditional Judaism. He helped establish advanced Jewish study programs for women in Israel that are comparable to men's yeshivot. He has also promoted women's active participation within prayer services, including at the Zahavi-Asa congregation. Rabbi Riskin is an advocate for religious prenuptial agreements, which significantly increase the likelihood that upon a marriage's dissolution, a divorced woman is provided a get, or a Jewish bill of divorce. And he has been instrumental in establishing the first program for training women advocates in formerly all-male religious courts. Finally, Rabbi Riskin has recently appointed a manhiga ruchanit, a female spiritual advisor for the community of Efrat. This is the first such position held by a woman anywhere in Israel. I would like to thank Rabbi Riskin for presenting this lecture in my father's memory. Our family is deeply touched that someone of his stature is honoring our family's patriarch in this way. I am sure that my father is smiling from up above. Finally, the entire Asa family would like to thank Temple Beth Tikva for hosting this lecture. We are very excited that this evening coincides with TBT's 50th year anniversary celebrations that will take place in less than a week. The Asa family would also like to invite all of you to join us for the unveiling of the headstone for my father's grave. This ceremony will take place next Sunday at 1 p.m. at Pacific View Cemetery in Corona del Mar. Following the unveiling, we will gather here at 2:30 p.m. to share stories and memories about my father. Please join me in welcoming Rabbi Shlomo Riskin.
Thank you very, very much. I all of a sudden had a flashback when I walked in about one of my earliest intra-religious encounters with a Reform temple not far from Lincoln Square Orthodox Synagogue in Manhattan. And I was overwhelmed with sorrow for you. Let me explain. It was an early Shabbos morning, very early in my rabbinate in New York. And after services, a gentleman came over to me whom I knew. He was a regular in our shul usually, although he had not been there the Shabbat before. And I asked him, what happened last Shabbat? Smilingly, not accusingly. He said, well, to tell you the truth, Rabbi, I was in a Reform temple celebrating a bat mitzvah of a relative. I didn't ask you, I didn't know what you would say about that, but I went, and I learned something very interesting. I said, well, what did you learn? He said, I learned that a sermon can only take 7 minutes. How come you always speak close to 30 minutes? Good question. I was a young rabbi. I had to think very, very quickly. I said, Reform rabbis generally ride to their synagogue on Shabbat morning. How long does a ride take? No more than 10 minutes, usually about 7. And rabbis are notorious for working out their sermons on the way to the synagogue. Now, I have to walk. It's at least 20, 25 minutes from my home to the synagogue in New York. So therefore, it's a longer sermon. Now, you're all smiling, maybe politely. I said, I feel sorry for you. It took us close to 20 hours to get here from Israel. So you might be considered a captive audience. But I have compassion on myself as well, so it's not going to be that long, I promise you, or near that long, I promise you. First of all, I want to tell you that I'm truly humbled in giving the first Rabbi Zahavi-Asa memorial lecture. I didn't know Rabbi Asa. I just met Rabbi Elaine now entering into the synagogue. Aviva Zahavi-Asa is a regular at one of the congregations. We have 38 synagogues in Efrat. So at one of the synagogues in Efrat, but a synagogue that's user-friendly to women, obviously within halachic parameters, but very user-friendly to women, probably the most user-friendly in Efrat. And my son is actually one of the main gabayim and usual balei tefillah in the synagogue, so I'm there very often as well. And I did, however, read the eulogy, one of the eulogies, given by the Rabbi of the Young Israel at Rabbi Asa's death. And a very beautiful portrait emerged. First of all, a very beautiful portrait emerged about someone who clearly loved being a rabbi. And I felt an immediate connection, because I really love being a rabbi. I've been a rabbi now for 51, 52 years, and I don't feel any burnout whatsoever. I think it's a magnificent opportunity to study Torah and to teach Torah and to do good things. And if you're a people person, to be together with individuals during times of joy and times of sorrow, and really to connect and to be able to help and do chesed. So I really truly believe there's no better profession for a serious Jewish person. And the picture of Rabbi Asa that emerged was someone who truly loved being a rabbi and loved doing the things that rabbis do. And secondly, of course, he was a bridge builder. And during my career, I've also tried very hard to be a bridge builder between Jews, from religious to secular and everything along the road, in between, and likewise to the Christian community. And especially the evangelical community, which are probably the best friends that Israel has in the world today. I hesitate to say it, but almost the only friends that Israel has in the world today. And I believe that bridge building is exceedingly, exceedingly important.